Hey everybody, it's RPG here. It's April 2nd, 2018, and welcome to RPG Side-Quests. When it comes to this generation of gaming, one of my favorite AA, or between AA to AAA experiences that I really enjoyed, or you could possibly consider it a middleware type of experience, but anywhere around that, one of the games that I really enjoyed was a sandbox RPG. And it's a spin-off of the famous Dragon Quest franchise by Square Enix, where it's essentially basically like Dragon Quest meets Minecraft, because you play as a character whose job is to build a world that has been destroyed by monsters or taken over by monsters and try to restore humanity with your building prowess. And you want to build towns all over again, so that way you can take the world back from the forces of evil in a what-if scenario based on the first Dragon Quest game. And of course, what I'm talking about is Dragon Quest Builders for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita, which also got a Nintendo Switch port, which released around January or February this year, at least in North America. I think it released on the Nintendo Switch sometime in 2017, but in Japan. But when it comes to Dragon Quest Builders, it is definitely one of the best Dragon Quest spin-offs that I played in quite a long time. It seems like the Dragon Quest spin-offs in this day and age have been more and more appealing to not only me, but for many other older gamers as well. I mean, we had the Dragon Quest Hero games, you know, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2, which are essentially Dragon Quest meets Dynasty Warriors. And I know there's a lot of people who really enjoy the Musou games, so they really do like that approach for a Dragon Quest style game. And of course, Dragon Quest Builders has its own take on Minecraft, and a lot of people really enjoy the whole JRPG aspect of the whole game, because when it comes to Minecraft, I mean, it's basically like you're playing first-person Legend of Zelda, but in 8-bit, but there's a lot more to it than that, and there's a lot more to it when it comes to the Dragon Quest IP being attached to that type of genre with what Dragon Quest Builders tries to go for. And not only did we get that game in our hands, but news from last year really surprised me big time when I learned that we were actually getting a sequel called Dragon Quest Builders 2. And just like the first Dragon Quest Builders, how it was set in the first world of Alefgard, the second one is going to be set in the same world as the second game. So it's like the spin-off is going in the chronological order of the games, with where they originally, you know, the worlds where they originally started from, and they have those cool what-if scenarios. But believe it or not, we did get our first glimpse of new information and screenshots of the game, which I'm going to be showing you right here and right now, and I picked this up through Siliconera as news for anything that's in relation to Japanese role-playing games or Western role-playing game news. It's been pretty light, but at least this one showed up around yesterday, so I still think it equates to relatively new news at this point. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at it. We're going to be taking a look at Dragon Quest Builders 2's first screenshots as they share a closer look at its protagonists and the setting. Square Enix recently shared the latest on Dragon Quest Builders 2, and we now have a closer look with the first screenshots for the sandbox RPG sequel with a look at its male and female protagonists and setting. And if we take a look at the male and female characters, we can see that the male character definitely looks like Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z, because, you know, with the Dragon Quest games, the character designs are dealt with by Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama. So you can actually see that his influence from Dragon Ball is in Dragon Quest, and I mean, when it comes to the characters and the designs of the monsters and beasts and all that. So it definitely shows in the Dragon Quest IP with his influence and his design aspect. But anyway, if you take, like I said, if you take a look at the male, he definitely looks like he would be that of a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. Whereas the female, she is sporting pigtails, so she definitely kind of reminds me of Bianca from Dragon Quest V a little bit. And maybe like Jessica from Dragon Quest VIII, except for being, you know, a brunette or a redhead or dark brown haired or anything like that. I think it's supposed to be a redhead or a brunette, but with this character, the female protagonist, she's more blonde. Anyway, let's continue. Dragon Quest Builders 2, God of Destruction, Malroth, in the Empty Island will once again have you put the power of creation to use as a young builder with the ability to do just that in order to solve various problems. The protagonist's ancestor Man, try saying that 5 times fast. The protagonist's ancestor's ancestor was known as the legendary builder who revived the world from darkness long ago. Now it is up to the new builder, who is still an apprentice, to do the same. And after a certain turn of events, the protagonist find him or herself drifted onto Empty Island, an island without any inhabitants or just about anything. This is where your adventure starts, where you'll eventually see homes where people live and even towns. And similar to how Dragon Quest Builders was based on a what-if story from the very first Dragon Quest and also featured its final boss, Dragon Quest Builders 2 is based on Dragon Quest 2 and even has the final boss Malroth in its subtitle. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is in development for PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. So yeah, there's no release date for the game as of right now, as it's still in development, but from what I understand, I heard that Yuji Horii is the general director of the game, since he's been mainly the main head designer of the mainline Dragon Quest games since the beginning. And of course we have Koichi Sugiyama, who provides the music like he has been doing for every Dragon Quest mainline and spin-off installment, and as well as Akira Toriyama providing the character and monster designs and boss designs like he did for every installment of every mainline game and every spin-off, just like before. So looks like the main team is definitely coming back in full force for a little spin-off like that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to this bit of news, I'm actually very excited, and when I took a look at the screenshots, it definitely really piques my interest. I mean, we got another Dragon Quest Builders game that pretty much is like Dragon Quest meets Minecraft, and I really dig that. And with the setting, it definitely does look like it is going for what Dragon Quest II went for in terms of its setting. I think it took place in the same world as Alefgard, but I think it went into a whole different territory, because I think the protagonist from the first game took the princess with him to search for new land to create his own kingdom, since the king the kingdom from before, you know, in the main game was going to name him as the king, but the hero's like, no, 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 I'd rather go find my own kingdom. And then he took the princess with him, and they went to find a new kingdom and establish their own kingdom, and thus the protagonists in Dragon Quest II are based on the descendants of Erdrick, or Lodo, like the first hero from Dragon Quest I was, or they're the descendants of that hero, if you get what I mean. So yeah, that's what it's going for in terms of that setting, but taking place on an empty island, that's going to be a very interesting take. I mean, it's like you're stranded on a desert island and there's no way for you to get back on the mainland, so it's like you got to build civilization on this empty island while also having to deal with the final boss, which was Malroth, where the first game is the final boss is Dragon Lord. And of course it appeared in the end of Dragon Quest 1 as well as Dragon Quest Builders 1. But yeah, like I said, it definitely piques my interest, and I'm definitely looking forward to where the game is where the game goes. But since information is pretty scarce, I will say from the information we've gotten, the protagonists really do pique my interest. I mean, they don't look anything like the first protagonist, even though their character designs from Akira Toriyama are very identical, but you can actually see more of their hair being displayed, and they don't have a hood on them like they did from before, so you can actually see more of their designs from both without a hood and you know, just from their plain clothing. So yeah, step up in the right direction in terms of clothing, because I mean in terms of what they're supposed to appear as, because when it came to Dragon Quest Builders, hero or heroine or the main protagonist, the male or female, they just seemed like they represent the player, and it seems like they were going for that same direction with The Legend of Zelda, how the player is supposed to, or Link is supposed to represent the player. So it definitely seems like for this game they're going for established characters, kind of like how Dragon Quest II and every other Dragon Quest installment seemed to go for ever since, whereas the first game, it seemed that the character you were playing as, the descendant of Erdrick or Lodo, whichever version you're playing, was based is actually representing the player. Anyways, now since we're done with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the side quest video, or the comment from the last video, which I talked about the first details released for Trails of Cold Steel 4, The End of Saga. That's coming out on the PlayStation 4 in Japan near the end of this year. And let's take a look and see which comment is highlighted. And they're both from Christian Lopez. He had a couple of questions to add, a couple of comments he wanted to bring about, but And here's what he had to say. And this question right here is actually a pretty good question that I thought I would be able to ask him on, or answer him towards. We have seen a lot of JRPG franchises push the idea of installments taking part in a multiverse while others taking part in the same world, sometimes both. Which method would you prefer, or would you rather they stay completely disconnected? If you're talking about like an anthology of games that are set in the same universe or in the same type of setting, then I would say that, you know, if they were set in the same world like the Suikoden games, I'd say it's okay that they're set in the same world, but make sure that the stories are completely different and they don't have any connection towards each other whatsoever, because with every game they treat themselves as their own story, and they basically pretty much wipe the slate clean with just making the protagonist be going into this world that is completely unknown, which represents the player. But when it comes to an anthology of taking place within the same multiverse, I don't know, that's kind of a little hard. But if they're in the same multiverse, I would say they pretty much should stay disconnected. But if they were set in the same world, then they should be okay if they're connected somewhat, but make sure that most of their story is completely disconnected from all the others, and it treats itself as its own tale and not just something of an even bigger scale that connects to an even bigger central focus. And I think that's something that the Legend of Heroes games have been doing. They've been because there's this antagonistic organization, or the main antagonistic organization is called Ouroboros, and they have so many members of that organization, and not all of them have been talked about in the Legend of Heroes games. I mean, they covered some in Trails in the Sky, that trilogy, and even the one that deals with the Crossbell games, the two of them, as well as the ones that are within Trails of Cold Steel that are in the Erebonian Empire. So, I think that in that type of approach is also okay too, but at least make the connections make sense throughout through each and every game, even if you want to keep their stories separate from each other and the character interactions and all that separate from each other, then yeah, I definitely enjoy that more. But just make sure that they don't try to connect themselves too much with each other, or else if they try to connect to each other too much, or if they have so much going on at the same time, then I would say that would leave the plot very, very convoluted. So it's better to stay, keep things simple than having to overcomplicate things. But anyway, Christian Lopez, thank you for your comment on that. So yeah, that's all for today's video on RRPG Side-Quests. If you like what you see, then be sure to rate this video, as well as leaving your feedback down in the comments. Also, within the comments of this video, and with every other video I do, make sure that you leave your comment or question in the comment section, so whoever responds or whoever leaves a comment in that video, I will feature your comment as well as your channel, in the next video, as well as your channel in the description. So definitely do that. And also, if you did like what you see, then be sure to hit that subscribe button underneath this video, as well as that bell button that's right next to the subscribe button, because you will stay up to date with every video that I put out. And when you hit that subscribe button, that means that more support from you guys will mean that more content is coming from me in the future that you guys are not going to find anywhere else. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for today, so I got to get going. And until next time, this is RRPG signing off by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Peace out!